Welcome to the Nerd Journey Podcast. Our goal is to help you, the technology professional, accelerate your career progression, increase your job satisfaction, and be more effective in your existing role.
We want to bring listeners like you the career advice we wish we'd been given earlier in our careers.
I'm John White, at VJourneyman on Twitter, sharing co-host duties with Nick Cordy at NetworkNerd_.
We're two former IT operations guys who have moved on to pre-sales roles with technology vendors. We have our opinions, but we also like to highlight the journeys of others and see what we can learn from them.
We'd also like to ask for your feedback to make this a conversation, not a one-way broadcast. Email us at nerdjourneypodcast@gmail.com or DM us at nerdjourney on Twitter. So come join us on our nerd journey.
Let's take a trip. Episode 339. What if you had 45 minutes to present the impact of your body of work? Could you effectively defend the fact that you have earned that next level title? This is just a preview of what Daniel Paluszek experienced when he pursued becoming a global field principal. Oh, by the way, he's done this at 2 different companies. If you missed part 1 of our discussion with Daniel in episode 337, we talked about his early career in technology that started in the help desk and led him all the way into consulting. We talked about the importance of mentoring, a little bit about public speaking, and Daniel took the time to share what technology partnerships are and what go-to-market means in our industry. If you missed part 2 of our discussion in episode 338, we talked about Daniel's work in professional services. He got to spend some time in both pre-sales and post-sales and started to work with larger and larger customers. In that discussion, we also heard about Daniel's experience as a people leader, as well as the reason he decided to go back to being an individual contributor. In part 3 of our discussion this week, we pick it up with Daniel's decision to go and join a hypergrowth startup in an emerging technology field. Then he talks about leaving the startup, taking a role at VMware, and pursuing the path to global field principal. There's a theme of field awareness threaded throughout this discussion that I want to see if you pick up on as you listen back to it. And we'll also talk about why Daniel likes the role of principal and the responsibilities that that role entails if you should so choose to pursue it. Let's get you to part 3 of our discussion with Daniel Paluszek.
Could we maybe talk about the next job transition over to, it looks like, HPE SimpliVity? I'm just wondering what that was like, because that was kind of like a, hot new technology at the time. To be in the type of position that you were in and then change organizations and employers and be in kind of like a brand new technology wave, just like you were participating in the virtualization technology wave. Was that a conscious choice, or was it just a side effect? How did that look?
Oh, it was very conscious. Yeah, I had the opportunity and just, working and being exposed with many different great professionals. Cisco was an awesome opportunity. I learned so much. It was almost like a home for me at Cisco, but I was presented with this opportunity to join a up-and-coming startup, which was SimpliVity at that time. And at that time, the industry was moving from this 3-tier architecture and virtualization to what was considered hyperconvergence, which converged compute, storage, and networking in a form factor and scaled out in a linear fashion. This was an exciting time in the industry, especially for virtualization, as we could scale out a private cloud environment in a very repeatable and palatable way while providing these functions without buying discrete components and building it yourself. So SimpliVity came around and I had the opportunity. I knew some of the people that joined and, I kind of reflected and I said, okay, I've never done a startup before, a hypergrowth company. There was about 100, 150 people when I joined. In that first year, I think we tripled the company in size. Revenue was growing exponentially. It was something that was just an incredible experience because my role was a solution architect and a pure pre-sales role, working direct with customers and working with partners and nurturing and building our relationships and partnerships in the Southeast. So I focused in Florida and Alabama. Those were my two states that I covered. What I learned from that was essentially building your own business. How did you run your business and how did you operate your business? It was my sales rep and I at that time and another great mentor of mine that we were one logical unit and divided and conquered. And we were able to almost at times just finish each other's sentences because we were just locked in, knew exactly what we had to do, what our priorities were, and what we focused on. So why I'm telling you this is sometimes you have to take that leap of faith and try something that's completely unknown. I was leaving a tried and true company. Cisco Systems is an incredible company, going to a startup that I had no idea where this was going to go. But I thought at that time, my kids were super young. Why wouldn't I do this? There's nothing but upside to try this and get the experience of a startup. And so that's what I did. In those 2 years and change, I was at SimpliVity and I left right after the acquisition to join VMware, were some of the most impactful years of my career because I felt like I fit what I did at Cisco in 5 years, if not more, into 2 years, just learning all different types of roles from just being that field professional and solution architect to marketing, understanding how marketing works and building your own campaign. SimpliVity at the time, there wasn't a lot of field awareness and industry awareness of what hyperconvergence was, to educating customers, educating partners. So every day was about figuring out how do we not only just simplify the messaging, but focus on the business problems, the challenges, and how we're directly solving those for all industries and customers. And we had to wear all these different hats, from interfacing with product management to, like I said, marketing. I had to go learn how to run a marketing campaign, an event, and that was something I'd never done before. If there was any nugget of wisdom, everybody should do a up and coming fast growth company and just understand all the different roles needed and working together on building something, building a company and working in a small team. Those relationships last. I mean, a lot of those people I still talk to this day because they're just durable and meaningful relationships. And we built something that was extraordinary and special. I say that because there's definitely a part of me that just loved that short tenure before HPE acquired SimpliVity. And it was just a great ride and great people. And not only that, great technology too.
It seems like in any role we take, our role may change a little bit as the company changes, but probably none so much as the hypergrowth startup. So you talked about running your own marketing campaign, building your own business. What are some other ways that your role morphed as that startup grew that you didn't expect?
That's a good one, Nick.
I think when we say startup, people maybe don't know what to expect. Because like a job opening for a technical pre-sales person at a startup, if you compare that to a larger company, perhaps it might not look the same, or it might not look the same in 3 months.
You know, the big thing that you had to learn very quickly is adaptability in a startup. You don't really have a defined, clear role in the sense that you are in a hyper-growth mode and you're doing what it takes. You roll up your sleeves to get the job done. If it's support, if it's product management, you find the people that are going to work and collaborate and execute and get it done. And as the company grows, these distinct roles and responsibilities are solidified and we grow the organization. And just like any organization, you have dedicated people. But at the beginning, the one thing that wasn't evident to me coming from a large manufacturer or vendor was you had to do everything under the sun and you had to wear 27 different hats. I was willing to do that. I kind of had an idea that this was going to be the case, but when I made the comment, you're running your own business, you're literally running your own business. You have to go host marketing events and figure out how to get funding and figure out how to go contact a restaurant and build a menu and what are the logistics associated with it. And if you had a speaker, and then what is the registration system you're going to use? How are you going to follow up with individuals that were interested in the technology and the platform and schedule that? In the early stages, my sales rep and I were doing all of that. And as the company grew, we had predefined people. We had a marketing person, and we had a sales development representative that would help us call these individuals or schedule meetings. I think the big curveball I got was, that first foray into wearing all these different hats and just getting it done. Doesn't matter what it takes. And sometimes you just got to do things that you may not like, that are just part of getting the job done right and getting it done successfully in the interest of your company and your end customer. And sometimes you just have to get it done. And I think there's a delicate balance. In large organizations, we have clearly defined roles and responsibilities. Sometimes you just got to break that glass and figure it out after the fact. But if you're doing in the best interest of your customers and your organization, I've never seen anything negative come out of that, because you're serving and bringing value to your stakeholders at the end of the day.
What I'm hearing, Daniel, is you have this pattern of, I'm going to go try this and do this and gain experience and learn from it. And it's going to make me better in some way. Even if I don't know how it's going to make me better right now, I have this feeling that it's going to make me better somehow. And then that post-processor that's inside you is going to kick in, and you're going to be able to use it later. Like that's where we are in the conversation for me.
I think that's an eloquent way of saying it. It could be the inference and AI terminology, but yes, I agree with you.
It's retrieval augmented generation, right?
That's right.
Did you find that you were tired of startup life and that's why you moved on? Or was it just a new opportunity that kind of took you down this path to getting to the principal role not too long after that?
Candidly, when VMware calls and your career is shaped by VMware from such a young age, you answer the call. Coincidentally, this was not planned at all. HPE released their intent to acquire SimpliVity. I was intending to ride it out, see what happens. And lo and behold, I had a friend from Cisco that said, hey, the VMware partner group is looking for some solution engineers or systems engineers and architects in their partner group. I think you would be a good fit. And I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, VMware is near and dear to my heart. In my belief, it shaped my career to where I am now. So I said, you know what? I always, entertain the opportunity and let's just see where it goes. And 2 weeks later, I accepted an offer from VMware in the partner group. I left right when the acquisition was closing at HPE. And I remember having a conversation with the director that hired me at VMware. And he's like, look, you can stay on and see where this goes, right? You could do really well at HPE. There's no guarantees, right? You got to do what's best for you and your family and what your desires were. And I struggled a little bit with that. It was great, but I said, VMware was a calling for me. And I went with my gut and I said, I'm going to take this offer at VMware and see where it goes. You got to make decisions, again, have that leap of faith, like I said, with the Cisco to SimpliVity transition, and just roll with it and see where it goes. So took the VMware position, and it kind of brought me home to everything that culminated from when I was a customer, starting off with GSX and first versions of ESX, to all my professional services background, to what I did at Cisco, because everything was around the data center and building the first cloud architectures, to SimpliVity with hyperconvergence. So I came to VMware with this level of experience from services to deployment to architecture. I just had this culmination of exposure and depth of experience that I was able to utilize in a role core to what I've built in the past. In my time at VMware, which was 5-6 years, rose through the ranks and became a field principal architect at VMware, which was an incredible journey because My entire time was focused on service provider partners. This is all pre-Broadcom, so I'm going to use terminology from them. We called that the Cloud Provider Program at the time and supported these cloud providers globally in building their business and utilizing that service provider terminology. They were providing infrastructure as a service or some kind of platform as a service, all built on VMware architectures. I worked hand in hand with how do you solidify this architecture, provide this as a service in a sound and reliable method, and bring this out to your customers, either in a shared multi-tenant cloud or dedicated private cloud environment. And that's also where I found my appetite for blogging too. At the time, the VMware community was just very active, explaining new components of our new releases. And I was just super interested in that. And so I just started hammering away at blogs, but I also realized very quick that my cloud providers would ask me a lot of the same questions over and over again. What if I wrote an article that explained this in detail and provided the context and that self-service ability and kind of automated me out of that job and answering that question, but also explain the context of that. So I used the blog medium to really start explaining a lot of these new concepts that were new, next generation, maybe complex, and breaking them down to palatable methods. I started on the corporate site, but also my own personal site. And, by the time I left VMware, I think I had 150 blog posts between my site, the corporate site. I had something called light boards. If you guys have ever seen the clear light boards, drawing out diagrams on YouTube. And I just found that as a mode of communication that just provided just knowledge, awareness, capabilities that a lot of partners and providers would seek out, and removing friction from that. I think that was the biggest thing that I saw was everything we do on the business side from a solution engineering or architecture perspective is asynchronous. It's email in, email out, Zoom call in, Zoom call out. It was another medium where I could articulate a message and really help the community on growing the VMware solutions.
I did not realize you had written that many blogs, Daniel. That's incredible.
Yeah, my personal site is down. I took it down just because it was so outdated. The business unit that I worked with, they had product marketing and tech product management. And these people afforded the opportunity for let me help you, explain some of these concepts on that. And so talking about a cross-functional team that John mentioned earlier, having this cohesive, collaborative team, no matter where you reside in the organization, builds the best of breed organizations. If you can collaborate and work together effectively on a clear and single mission, you can accomplish anything. And I thought we did an incredible job supporting our cloud providers and partners.
I wanted to ask about that, the field principal title, because that's come up a couple times in different people that we've talked to. Can you maybe explain what that title means? I suppose in the context of VMware at the time, what led up to the decision to even try to get it, that kind of thing.
At the time, VMware had the Office of the CTO Ambassador program where we had specific engineers and architects that would work with the Office of the CTO on our next generation solutions. And it was a cohesive organization, what I would consider the best minds of the company that would collaborate on these special initiatives and projects and really provide feedback to our leaders and our research and development arms on what are we seeing the industry move to? What are the trends? Is this meaningful to our customers? And have this collaborative forum to provide raw and very direct feedback in some cases, and have this ability to pick up specific initiatives and see them to fruition. So coming back to your question on field principal, this was a level above senior staff at VMware that designated your global contributions an impact to the global organization, not just in your specific niche or industry or field, but it represented people that were able to cascade beyond your patch or your accounts that you covered, and what the impact you provided to others inside of VMware and outside of VMware. Could be for partners, could be for customers, but it really acknowledged and recognized individuals on what they have provided and where are they going in their certain region. So for me, the path to principal for me was I was at a partner. I supported partners and service providers. That's my bread and butter. That's where I saw as my kind of value differentiation. And I wanted to represent partners in a way that, in my opinion, wasn't done before. So I was very passionate about that. And so I wanted to go through this field principal program and go through the process on acquiring this. And at that time, there is a full intake process. You had to basically lay out all of your accomplishments with letters of recommendation, and a board would review it to see if you met the requirements just to be part of the panel defense. So the analogy that I used in the certification context was it's analogous to like a VCDX or VMware Certified Design Expert, because that was part test and part defense or a live defense presentation on defending a design. The field principal was focused on what is the quantitative and qualitative metrics you have achieved, and also was a test to how you presented a body of work. You know, the one thing that I recall was you had 45 minutes to present in front of a live panel everything that you would follow within this framework and rubric. And it was hard stop too. And if you didn't complete it, they could not grade you completely, or you would have missed the mark. You didn't answer these key areas. So your presentation and everything that you show in your body of work had to be represented in a executive format. So for me, this was a test. This was like the final boss of testing your presentation skills. I mentioned before that I was terrible at the beginning of my journey with presenting. This was a test to validate, am I there from a presentation and defending my body of work and what I've contributed and what I'm going to continue to contribute at VMware. And everything that I've learned in my past, right, all culminated to this moment to say, how do you represent everything in less than 45 minutes? Some people might be listening, oh, well, it's a presentation for 45 minutes. It's a lot harder than you anticipate. It was quite the experience. There was a high fail rate. That's what I always heard. And I also had somebody tell me that at the time, you know, I was at VMware when I went through this like less than 3 years. And somebody told me, well, nobody gets principal until you're at 5 years. And they said, you're not going to get it. That's what they told me. And I said, well, you know, I appreciate your consideration, but I'm going to prove you wrong. And that's what I set out to do. So that was just fuel to my fire, because you tell me I can't do something, oh boy, better watch out. I'm going to figure out a way.
You drew the analogy to the VCDX. I'm wondering if it is similar in context and really the skills that you need to, you know, get through the panel and do the presentation are the skills that you would need to speak to high-level executives, C-level executives at a company, and to be able to hold their attention and speak to what they care about.
I would say categorically yes, because I followed a lot of the same methodology. I never got my VCDX. Highest I got was VCIX. But Solution Architecture 101 and the approach and the methodology, understanding what are your functional and non-functional requirements, your assumptions, your constraints, your risks. The field principle methodology followed the same exact pattern and system methods that the VCDX followed. So while I never acquired my VCDX, I had to follow a lot of the same methodology and blueprint to approach it and showcase what I've accomplished for the global community, but also represent the designs and architectures that I built for service providers and partners in that lens. You had to follow the same methodology. So I left that, experience knowing so much more on design concepts that I was probably practicing, but I wasn't aware of. And I think that was one thing that I came out of that, understanding that I was doing these things almost subconsciously. And it solidified that there was these concepts that were written as methodology that you just learn by real world experience in a lot of cases.
What would you tell someone, Daniel, who said, I really want to be a principal? What's the cautionary tale you would give to that person about, well, here's what it really takes, because this is what it means, and this is what you can do with it if you get it?
Are you ready to have that responsibility? And are you willing to lead the biggest challenges and problems in the organization, internally and externally? Because people are going to seek you out to solve these problems that others could not. You have to set the tone and narrative and lead how you're going to execute on this. And I went through something similar at ServiceNow. I was not a principal when I joined here. I had to go through their parallel program to become principal. And it was a very similar experience, which was interesting, just in ServiceNow terminology and methodology. But coming back to your question, Nick, if you are signing up and raising your hand for the responsibility, you got to go execute. And you're accountable for that, and ensuring you not only are you the tip of the spear, is an overplayed term, but you're leading the pack. You're setting the tone. You're setting the narrative for the rest of the organization and the team. And you got to set the right precedent and the best precedent so others understand and realize how to achieve that, and also what to learn from this.
And is it an accurate statement that at most companies, if you are at the principal level, solving some of those biggest challenges the company has is something that you work on in addition to the job you were hired to do in the first place?
Your day-to-day responsibilities. Yep, it is. And I think that that's one thing. Are you motivated? Do you have the desire to do that and put the extra time in? I don't really know anybody that really tracks their time in this industry right now, because everybody is working on something they're passionate with. So you have to have the passion and the desire to solve these big problems, and what's beyond your day job to really make that impact on a global scale.
I imagine it becomes difficult if you have to choose between where to focus your time, because the big problem you're working on is definitely interesting. You wouldn't be working on it if it wasn't interesting, but your day-to-day work also has to take precedence too. So what's the decision framework on where I focus and how long I focus there?
That's a great question. I think it's your working nights and weekends. I hate to say that. At the end of the day, your day-to-day job, your responsibilities, especially in a customer-facing role, your customers are first. That was priority for me through both of these experiences, VMware and ServiceNow. You have to serve your customers and your organization first, and then the other priorities come second. It was all about, for me, time management and time efficiency and managing hour by hour on that. And then, candidly, having a discussion with your family. I think that, through both of these journeys, I had a very supportive family that supported me on what I wanted to go through. And there's short-term sacrifices. My journey here at ServiceNow, I'd work every Saturday morning from 8 to 12, and then I would try to block out time for the kids, right? And then Saturday nights I would work, and then Sunday I would work maybe a couple hours at night, and then Monday to Friday I would work nonstop and try to carve out time for the family. But, I looked at it as short-term deficit for a long-term benefit. And so sometimes you have to have that level of communication with your loved ones that say, this is what I'm going through, and I need your support and collaboration. and have that constant communication on the personal side. And on the professional side, you need to have management and leadership that are going to support you on this endeavor. And they have to realize that how do we ensure Daniel's successful in his day-to-day job, but also successful on this track? You have to get that endorsement on both sides. And again, I'm very fortunate on both experiences. I had leadership that supported me through and through, and a great family that supported me through it.
That's a great point. Your leadership chain has to approve you're spending the extra time on this giant project for the organization, in addition to what they hired you to do.
That's right.
Man, that's fascinating. What keeps you enjoying that scope of role, if you don't mind me asking? You're in it. You've done it at a couple different places. What keeps it exciting so that you don't get bored like you did in earlier phases of your career?
Jumping in on the problems that nobody has been able to solve yet. And people coming to me to say, we have this situation. We haven't found a path to resolution. How can you help here? How can you lead this up? And earning that trust and confidence in your leadership that says, this is something that we want Daniel on to take the flag and lead this. And many times I don't have a clear path to execution. I got to go figure that out. And I got to work with I got to build a cross-functional team. And I have to look at different perspectives and what we're trying to solve. But building that methodology and working with like-minded individuals that are scrappy, have grit, that are desired to build something great just drives me. I like people that are willing to, again, roll up their sleeves and get stuff done in the interest of our customers and partners. And I think that that's what motivates me on a daily basis. There's problems anywhere you look or challenges. Let's go solve them. Let's go conquer them. And I think that that's what I look for. And again, I take away, even to this day, every experience is a blessing because it just rounds you out as an individual and you learn from it. And that post-processing that I talked about before still kicks in. And it's something you can take away and build on top of, and just makes you a better professional.
There it is, John. That's the mic drop moment.
I think so. Yeah. I feel like we just got tons and tons of nuggets from every phase of your journey. If people want to find you and follow you, is LinkedIn a good way to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really my only forum right now. Look me up on LinkedIn. Wish you all the best. Thank you again, Nick and John, for the time here. This was a great experience.
Well, knowing that you could have done this in 45 minutes and we kept you on for 2.5 hours is a little bit humbling.
That's right.
So it's great. Thank you again.
Did you pick up on the theme of field awareness in that discussion? So when Daniel worked for the startup, SimpliVity, he was working for a company that was in an emerging technology space. They had to create field awareness for the problems those solutions could solve, educate potential customers and partners, and just general practitioners in the market. And I think we see that Daniel was able to translate the lessons he learned creating field awareness at the startup to what he did when he joined VMware. Because we see it turning into a next iteration. All of the blogs he wrote, the light boards he created, that was really creating field awareness for the community of partners that he served. It was helping the business unit he worked for scale. It was decreasing the friction to use the technologies the company he worked for created to serve its customer and partner base. And I think there's an element of field awareness when we talk about someone with the principal title. If you were to exchange emails with someone who had the principal title, after listening to a lot of our episodes, you probably have some awareness of what that person does and maybe the fact that they get pulled in to solve some of the biggest challenges that the company has, the company or its customers, perhaps. Now, I do think that we need to distinguish between the way the principal title is put on different roles at different companies. So in the case of Daniel and many other people we've talked to, he was a global field principal or a principal partner technology strategist. In his case, both of those are field-facing. We call it field-facing because it faces a set of customers or partners of the company in question. This could be someone in technical pre-sales. It could be someone in professional services. It might be someone in technical support or some other individual contributor in a field-facing role. So you have a responsibility to entities outside of the company where you work. Now, we've also seen the principal title in the form of principal engineer. And in the case of Ken Collins and Max Canet Alexander, we'll put their episodes in the show notes that are great to go back and listen to. They were in the software development space. That was where their area of expertise was. So the customers they served were internal to the organization. They're still helping the organization solve problems, but they might not be in a field-facing role where they're talking to customers and partners of the company they worked for. So it doesn't mean that there aren't similarities across the principal title, no matter how it looks. It might just be different in terms of who you work with when you are at the principal level, when you're a software engineer, for example, or you're in one of those field-facing roles. If you want a couple episodes to go back to that talk about what it's like to work in a hypergrowth startup, I would encourage you to go back to episode 166 and 167 with Andrew Miller. And we also had a good conversation with him about the principal title in one of those episodes. We'll make sure to put it in the show notes as well. If you're someone who found this episode or found our show recently, I'd love to talk to you one-on-one about how you found it, what you were looking for when you found it, and what made it interesting to you. Send me a DM on LinkedIn or email me at nerdjourneypodcast@gmail.com. We want to make sure that our show is discoverable and findable for technology professionals looking for the help that these stories provide. Until next time.
Farewell, listeners. Tune in next time as the journey continues. I'm John White at VJourneyman, for Nick Cordy at NetworkNerd_, signing off.
Adios.